Large amounts of discrete data can be written as a frequency table or as grouped data. The table here shows the number of students with a specific shoe size. The table shows us that 3 students have a shoe size of 39, 17 students have a shoe size of 40, 29 students have a shoe size of 41, and 34 students have a shoe size of 42. As you can see, a frequency table is a quick way of writing long list of numbers. The number of anything is called its frequency, where F stands for frequency. Now remember, data can also be presented as a grouped frequency table. But here the specific data values are not included in the table, instead they are grouped. The groups are commonly known as classes. As you can see here, this is an example of a grouped frequency table. This table shows the time x seconds taken by a random sample of females to run 400 meters. Now, if you look at this table at first glance, it may seem that the classes overlap, but it's not the case here. If you take the first row 55 to 65 seconds, this means x is greater than or equal to 55 but less than 65. If you look at the second row, the time shown here is 65 to 70 seconds. This is also the shorthand form of writing x is greater than or equal to 65 and less than 70. Now let's take a look at how to find the class boundary for the first row of the table. Class boundary is the range of each group of data. As you can see here, the data has no gaps and hence the class boundaries for the first row are 55 seconds and 65 seconds. Since there are no gaps, the class boundaries are the numbers of the class. Now, let's take a look at how to find the midpoint and class width for the first row. As we learned earlier, the class boundaries for the first row are 55 seconds and 65 seconds. So, to find the midpoint at 55 and 65, then divide by 2, so it's 60. Class width is a difference between the upper and lower class limit of classes that follow one after the other in a series. So, the class width for the first row is 65 minus 55 equals 10. As you can see here, this table also shows the time x seconds taken by a random sample of females to run 400 meters. The data of this table are pretty similar to that of the previous table, but here the data has gaps. In the first row, the time is 55 to 65 seconds and then in the second row it's 66 to 70 seconds, where in the previous table it was 65 to 70 seconds. Now, let's take a look at how to find the class boundaries, midpoint and class width for the first row of this table. The class boundaries for the first row are 54.5 seconds and 65.5 seconds, as the data has gaps. Since the data has gaps, the class boundaries are halfway between 55 and 65. To find the midpoint for the first row at 54.5 and 65.5, then divide by 2, so the midpoint is 60. The class width for the first row is 11, as 65.5 minus 54.5 equals 11. Here is another example for a grouped frequency table. As you can see here, the data has no gaps. Now, find the class boundaries for the third group. Since there are no gaps in the data, the class boundaries are 1.4 kilograms and 1.5 kilograms. Find the midpoint of the second group. The class boundaries for the second group are 1.3 and 1.4 and the midpoint is 1.3 plus 1.4 divided by 2 equals to 1.35.